This podcast is made possible by the Alex Angard Fershtman Foundation. Our mission is to provide education on how to work with and support people on the autism spectrum.
Someone had recently asked me, how do I help people who have to mask all the time, who don't feel normal, who have to work so hard to connect? It's a different individual journey with every person that I work with. But some of the commonalities that I've experienced or I've had the pleasure of journeying with an individual, one of the things, I work with a gentleman who doesn't understand why people assume he doesn't have empathy. And the reality is he has so much empathy, or what I might even call hyper empathy, that he doesn't know where his feelings stop and somebody else's feelings begin. And what's happening is he's getting overwhelmed by not only his own emotions, but overwhelmed by experiencing your emotions. And so what can happen is that sense of overwhelmness can kind of cause their anxiety to go up. And then they're kind of freezing, like, what do I do in this situation? I'm getting uncomfortable. So helping them break that down with their real experience it's not that they don't have empathy, it's just that you have so much empathy and so much care and so much love for others that when they hurt, and you don't know how to manage that.
Right.
So sometimes it's just educating them, or them educating me and me interpreting that through a different lens that helps them to kind of see, okay, if I can break it down like that, then there's things I can do to change that. Maybe talk about, where does my problem start and your problem end, and kind of be aware that it's okay. This anxiety is coming from a place of me just feeling somebody's feelings, and that's okay. So just introducing them a little bit to, the typical world, the neurotypical world's way of experiencing connection. And then, but also being willing to learn yourself and curious yourself about how the neurotypical person is experiencing their emotions in that moment. Again, double empathy is about two individuals who are so different that they're having a hard time communicating, right? It never works when only one person is willing to put in the energy to try to mask or connect or fit in, right?
Right.
The effort has to come from both parties.
Yeah. I think it has to be in all cases.
Mm-hmm.
I know Alex, if someone was upset, he was upset. If he thought he did something wrong, he was upset. He was definitely a people pleaser.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was a people pleaser. He was a rule follower. So yeah.
That's funny you say that. My nephew, I have a son, he's 36, so my nephew is half a year younger than him. But I remember when he was right around 12, which is a tough age for everybody, mm-hmm. also a tough age for people on the spectrum because social dynamics, but a tough age. I remember showing up at his house, and right out of the gate he said, "I'm sorry, Aunt Annie." And I'm like, "What are you sorry for?" He's like, "I don't know." He's so used to making a mistake that he's mm-hmm. just given a preemptive strike. I'm going to say I'm sorry just in case I do make a mistake, right? I would imagine, I don't know, but I would imagine that at some point they probably don't even trust themselves, right?
Yes.
I'm afraid that in this social situation, I might make a mistake.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and that is exactly why the reward system never worked with Alex, because if you didn't do something, you wouldn't get. He was so afraid of not doing the right thing that he just couldn't do it. He was just so afraid of it, where it got to the point where, again, at their autism school, it's like, he's going to earn whatever mm-hmm. anyways. Mm-hmm. And it took a while for him to trust that. Mm-hmm. Like we were at some kind of fair or something, and he wanted pizza, and they were out. And Alex said, "If I'm good," which broke my heart. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, "Alex, you're always good. I promise you, we will leave here, we'll get pizza. You're always good." But he was so afraid of doing something wrong, and to your point, yeah.
Well, my issue with the reward system is, like you said in Alex's case, so in society, we tend to focus on doing better, doing more, or correcting what we get wrong. It's just how we're conditioned. Rarely do we stop and smell the roses and pat ourselves on the back. In fact, I don't pat myself on the back because it just feels weird. Like, don't pat yourself on the back end because there's still much more work you still got to do, like you don't accept that you've done something great, right? We're just conditioned that way, that we're conditioned to do more, do better, to grow, and to not really fully appreciate our gifts, our talents, the things that we've done right. So when you talk about the reward system, what comes to mind for me is this long-term narrative that develops over time that I'm going to fail at everything I try. Right? I once worked with a young man who, and this was very early on in our relationship, and I'm trying to get in there and understand his world and his experience and his trauma and his history. And we were at a meeting, a school meeting, and again, first time coming together with his team, and we started talking about goals. And I watched him just shrink in his chair. He just became like so just the energy was just drained out of him as soon as we said the word goal. Afterwards, I had debriefed with him because I was very curious about that. And it turns out that he associates the word goal with failure, right? Because every goal that he's had, because that's what we do, we
Right.
goal people to death, right?
Right.
You got to have goals in your plans. And so we goal people to death. And every goal that he has had in front of him, he has failed at. And so he has this narrative of being a failure. And when you have that narrative of being a failure, it's so hard to try something new,
Yes.
something unusual,
Yes.
something different,
Yes.
because it hurts to fail.
Right. You don't want to fail. I mean, right. Especially when you're really, and I think most people want to do right. Like Alex was, I think most people are people pleasers. But yeah.
Yeah, we don't stop to say, "Wow, what a cool monkey bear,"
Right.
And we don't do that. We don't appreciate. We're just moving on to the next thing we got to learn, and that's part of scaffolding is part of our learning process.
Yeah.
Scaffold. But at some point, we need to just accept our gifts and our talents, and celebrate them.
Yeah.
I would imagine if we celebrated gifts and talents and not so much. It saddens me that people on the spectrum do a lot of masking in order to get through their day. I know that if a child makes it through their school day, middle school or third grade on up, if they've made it through their school day, by the time they get home, they're exhausted.
Yeah.
They are so exhausted because they are living that imposter syndrome
Yeah.
every moment of their day. And maybe some don't even know why. Maybe they don't have an understanding of why it's so much harder for them than maybe their peers or these people they think are on the normal side.
Right. And it's hurtful too. Like for Alex, he didn't understand he was different than, no one was ever mean to Alex when he was at public school. They would include, there were people that would go to lunch with him, but around 7th grade, it's that age, and he knew he was different. He knew he wasn't going to the parties, and he wasn't doing that, and it got so hard. That's why I moved him to an autism school, because he was feeling bad about himself, and that wasn't okay.
Yeah, and and to not know how to get there either, right? It's
Right.
kind of like I can't shoot basketball for the life of me. I can't sing. Don't ask me to sing you a song, right? If I had to get on stage and sing a song, I would be scared to death. There's nothing you can do that can make me sing.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do that can make me shoot baskets. There's nothing I can do to make a person with autism experience the world the way I experience my world.
Right.
And nor would I, again, we need to, I believe in multiple domains of intelligence. There's a reason that, I'm not a big basketball fanatic, but let's go with Michael Jordan. There's a reason he can hit those three throws without even thinking about it, right? That is an intelligence, a very special intelligence that many people don't have.
Right.
He has his monkey bear. if we really took the time to connect with people on the spectrum, we would probably be an amazing society, because there would be so much more we would learn.
Right, right. The people that really got to know Alex, I mean, really got to know him, loved him, appreciated his gifts, made sure they brought up the birthday every time they saw him. But yeah, I mean, there are people that really, and then there's people that no interest. So, and Alex knew it. So,
This is silly, but I don't even know why I'm thinking about it. I'm just going to tell you, one of the things that I thought was just the coolest was when Alex would light up when I would bring him some chocolate.
yeah.
I don't know why.
Well, because he knew you knew he loved chocolate.
Right, exactly. And I think that's what it was. I think it was deeper than me just bringing him some chocolate.
Right.
I think it was like, listen, I am listening to you at a very deep level, to the point where I know what your special things are, that, it's kind of like, wow, somebody got that,
Right.
So to me, that was a big thing, to watch him light up every time I would bring him something chocolate.
Right, because she knew you were thinking about him. He knew you liked that. You knew he liked it, and yeah, I mean, he appreciated those little, those little things. They were big things to him.
Or even when he was really struggling, and I would step in and just say, do you need a hug? And he'd be like, I want a hug. And he would give you a real hug.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I don't know. We need to be courageous enough and curious enough to learn the world through the other side of that double empathy problem.
Right.
We need to, because it's exhausting. It would be exhausting for me to try to pretend I know how to play the piano. There's
Right.
just certain things you can't do. Your brain's
Right.
not meant to do. And you shouldn't have to pretend that you can.
Right, or feel bad that you can't. I mean, not everyone is a baseball player. Not everyone. I mean, for anybody, they're just not. And everyone's got their things. Yeah. And they're no different. I mean, people with autism have their, whatever it is. And I mean, right, they can't be, yeah. People need to appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, again, my greatest teachers have been the people that have given me, I'm so humbled. I always feel very humbled when somebody lets me into that private world and trusts me to get into that private world, because I know it's scary. I'm just clinician number 355.
I know, but you give off the vibe like we knew right away.
But that's because I've been doing this for 30 years. I've been getting in there and seeing the world through so many unique lenses, and so it's kind of like, it's not my first rodeo, so
Yeah.
I'm not as scared to get in there and connect.
Right.
But I can see where other people would be.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And, I know you said you've been doing this for a long time. There's a lot of other people that have been doing it that don't get it, too. I mean, to be honest, not everybody that's been doing it the same years as you gets it.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
It might just be, I don't know, maybe it's because, like I said, my nephew, he was a half a year behind my son. So whenever he went through my sister, whenever they would go through their trials and tribulations and triumphs,
Yeah.
they would call Aunt Annie. Like, I remember my nephew was getting kicked out of middle school because he left his math class, and everybody was leaving. They were opening up their lockers and closing their lockers. And I recently walked through a middle school. I'm telling you, these kids are getting big. They're big. I'm overwhelmed walking through the middle school when everybody's doing class changes. But anyways, he went to his locker, and everybody's being noisy. And he goes, I feel like my head's going to explode. And because he said the E word, explode, he was suspended.
Oh,
for 10
no.
days. And
Oh, gosh.
So, okay, Aunt Annie, let's come. So I would go to this meeting with the school. And it's like, he's not the first person. Back then, he had what we described as Asperger's. I know that, I don't know how you feel about that, but I know that Asperger's is now, part of the autism spectrum. But he had Asperger's. And so I had explained to them that, it's not the first student you had that has Asperger's, and he will not be the last. So let's figure out how to make this work.
Right.
And we were able to, start moving the needle there. And I think, again, I'm learning from that experience. It happened in my, my early years of adulting. So it just kind of shaped who I became. And so maybe that's why it's a little easier for me to get in there. You know, once I got to college, I researched autism from every which direction I possibly could, even some of the nerdy directions, the statistics and everything. By the time I got to my PhD, I had, you know, embraced autism in so many different directions. I did my PhD on the experience of parents supporting their children with autism. So, yeah,
Well, that's a big thing. Yeah.
yes, I think working with the family is extremely important too. It's not just the individual; it's the
Yeah.
individual within their system
Yeah.
that you need to support. So I'm really glad that I ended up going in that direction. I learned a lot doing that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That is a big thing. A lot of people don't, you know, think about that. But yeah, it's right. Autism kind of affects the whole family. I mean, you know, it does. You just have to do things a little different.
And the whole family affects autism,
Yes.
and the whole community
Yes.
affects autism.
Absolutely.